I collapsed during a Friday night shift, face down behind the bar, with a tray full of glasses still in my hands. When I woke up in the hospital, hooked up to fluids and trembling from exhaustion, my manager told me he had called my momand. She said I was just adjusting to adulthood. But that night, I discovered something else. While I'd been working 3 jobs to survive medical school in Boston, my older sister Alyssa was getting 5,000 a month from our mother to fund her designer lifestyle in Los Angeles. Clothes, rooftop parties, weekend getaways, Chanel. All while I counted quarters for instant noodles. That was the moment I realized. The favoritism I'd felt growing up wasn't just emotional, it was financial, and I was done pretending not to see it. Boston was beautiful in the fall golden leaves, crisp air, coffee shops packed with students, but I barely noticed any of it. My world had shrunk to textbooks, bus stops, and 3 different jobs that barely covered rent. I'd wake up at 6 a.m. to tutor high schoolers before class, sprint across town in the afternoon to work an event, then head straight to the bar at night. My life was a blur of plastic gloves, spilled drinks, and muscle cramps. My parents, well, mostly my mother had agreed to pay for my tuition when I got accepted into med school. "We'll cover the education," she said, "but the rest is up to you. That's how you build character." So I built. I sacrificed everything, Elsa's sleep, social life, health. I showered at the gym some nights because I couldn't afford heating. I once lived off boiled rice and peanut butter for an entire week. I didn't complain. I thought this was what being independent looked like. And then there was Alyssa, my older sister, the star. While I scrubbed counters and memorized anatomy terms, her Instagram overflowed with silk scarves, cocktail dresses, sunset rooftops, and little Eiffel Towers made of lights and filters. One post read, "Mom always knows what I need. New Gucci heels just arrived. Blessed." I stared at it from the break room of a catering job, chewing on a dry granola bar and trying to ignore the stab in my chest. My mother always said Alyssa was sensitive, creative, needs a little more help. I was strong, independent, the practical one. She never said it outright, but the message was clear. Alyssa needed love. I needed to earn mine. At first, I told myself I was imagining things. Maybe she was saving up herself. Maybe she had a scholarship. Maybe it was Dad sending her money without Mom knowing. But deep down, I already felt it. That old ache from childhood, like an invisible wall, had always been there between U-zone built by expectations and favoritism. I told myself to stay focused, study harder, work more, push through, but my body was beginning to tell me otherwise. I was always tired. My vision blurred during lectures. My hands trembled during anatomy labs. And sometimes, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the hollow face staring back. It wasn't just the money, it was what the money represented. Love, value, belief. And for some reason, my mother had decided Alyssa deserved all 3. It happened on a Friday night, right in the middle of a packed bar shift. I remember the music thumping, the lights blurring, the endless line of customers snapping fingers and waving credit cards. My feet ached, my stomach was hollow, and I hadn't had a proper meal in almost 2 days. But I kept moving, refilling glasses, clearing tables, forcing a smile. Then, the room tilted. At first, I thought it was the lighting. But then the tray in my hand suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My knees buckled, and I reached out to steady myself on the edge of the bar, but I never made it. Darkness swallowed everything. When I woke up, it wasn't to music or voices, but to a soft beep. I was lying on a hospital bed, an IV in my arm, a dull ache running through my limbs. My mouth was dry, my head pounded. A nurse came in and told me I'd collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. "You're lucky your manager acted fast," she said. "Your blood sugar was dangerously low." Lucky. That word echoed strangely in my ears. I didn't feel lucky. I felt broken. Embarrassed. Small. Later that evening, my shift manager visited. He brought a small bag of my things, and a plastic-wrapped sandwich I couldn't even look at. "Rowan, you scared the hell out of us," he said. "You've been picking up way too many shifts. I know you're trying to make ends meet, but this isn't sustainable." He told me he'd called my emergency contact, my mom. "She didn't seem surprised," he said carefully. "Said you've always been dramatic when stressed. Told me you'd be fine." I didn't say anything. How do you explain to someone that collapsing on a bar floor wasn't a fluke, that it was years of being stretched too thin, of being told you're the strong one, so you shouldn't need help? That night, I returned to my apartment with shaking legs. The heating was broken again. My bank account showed 23.17. I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing the hospital wristband, and stared at the wall. Then, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Caleb, an old friend from undergrad who lived a few blocks away. He'd texted me earlier, but I hadn't seen it. "Hey, haven't heard from you. You okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time before finally replying. "Just got out of the hospital. Fainted at work. I'm okay now." 2 minutes later, he called. 15 minutes after that, he was at my door with groceries, warm soup, and that look on his face, equal parts concern and quiet outrage. Over dinner, I told him bits and pieces. He listened, then said something that stuck with me. "Your dad's a doctor, Rowan. Your family's not poor, so why are you living like this?" I didn't know how to answer. But the next day, I decided I needed one. I stared at my phone for a long time the next morning. My fingers hovered over Alyssa's contact. We hadn't spoken in months, maybe longer. Most of our interactions were filtered through group texts from Mom, holiday photo dumps, or the occasional Instagram like. But now I needed answers, and not the sugar-coated kind Mom always gave me. I hit call before I could change my mind. She answered on the third ring, her voice bright and slightly breathless. "Rowan? Oh my God, are you okay? You never call." "I'm fine," I said automatically, even though I wasn't. "Just wanted to check in." A pause. "Well, that's sweet," she said. "LA is amazing right now. There's this pop-up exhibit on Melrose, and I just found the cutest vintage boots. Mom actually sent me a little something extra for my birthday next week, this gorgeous Marc Jacobs tote. You'd love it." My stomach clenched. "That's nice," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something, kind of awkward." "Shoot." I hesitated. "How are you paying for everything out there? Like, school, rent, all the designer stuff?" She laughed. "Oh, don't worry about me. Mom transfers me $50 a month. Plus, sometimes more if I need it. She says I have to maintain a certain look for my industry. Fashion is all about image." I froze. Wool, Ling. Every single month. I felt like the air had been knocked out of me. Meanwhile, I was skipping meals and rationing bus fare. She said they couldn't afford to help me with anything beyond tuition," I said slowly. Alyssa went quiet. "Oh, I didn't realize that," she said finally. "I guess Mom just figured you were more independent." "Right, that word again." "I should go," I muttered. "Anatomy quiz coming up." "Sure, let me know if you ever want to visit. I can show you all the cute spots." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. I sat in silence, the walls of my apartment suddenly too thin, the air too still. My head pounded with the same thought looping over and over. It wasn't just favoritism. It was financial betrayal. I wasn't imagining the gap between me and Alyssa. It was real, documented, transferred, protected, encouraged. And suddenly, I couldn't unsee it. I texted my dad. "Hey, I'll be flying home for the holiday weekend. Need to talk." He replied 10 minutes later. "Glad to hear that. I miss you." He had no idea what was coming. Neither did Mom. But I was done being the quiet one. I landed in Oregon just before sunset. The air was colder than I remembered, and the old house looked exactly the same: white shutters, worn porch steps, hydrangeas curling at the edges. Familiar, but distant, like a painting I used to know. My dad opened the door, visibly surprised. Rowan. Wow, you've lost weight, he said, frowning. You okay? I forced a smile. I'm fine. Mom came around the corner, apron on, voice high and cheerful. Look who's home. Sit, I made chicken soup. The three of us sat down at the table like it was any other holiday. But everything inside me was pulsing, burning to surface. I stared at the bowl in front of me and couldn't taste a thing. Halfway through the meal, Dad leaned forward. So, how's school? Are you eating well? I looked him dead in the eye. Not really, I said. It's been hard. I live mostly on instant noodles and pre-packed sandwiches. The cafeteria's too expensive. He blinked. But, isn't the money I send enough for groceries? I paused. What money? The monthly transfer, he said, glancing at Mom. I've been sending 2-0 every month. Your mother handles it. I turned slowly to face her. She went very still. You haven't been sending that, I said, voice cold. Dad looked between us, confusion deepening. Deborah? I thought she didn't need it, Mom said finally, her voice soft, evasive. She's always been the strong one. Dad's jaw tightened. That wasn't your decision to make. She's surviving just fine, Mom snapped. Meanwhile, Alyssa is in a competitive field. She needs support. She needs image. She needs to look like she belongs. My heart thudded. She's getting 5-0 a month, I said. Dad went pale. What? Plus extras, I added. Designer bags, boutique rentals, networking trips. He turned to Mom, stunned. Is that true? Mom looked down, then nodded. I've been diverting the money, she admitted. And yes, I used some of the trust. What trust? I asked, my voice breaking. Dad looked like someone had slapped him. There's a joint family trust, he said slowly, eyes still on her. It was supposed to be split equally between you and Alyssa when you turned 25. Mom exhaled. She needed it now. You stole from her, he said, from both of them. She's just so fragile, Mom whispered. Rowan is like you tough. You two always manage. No, Dad said, his voice suddenly sharp. You don't get to rewrite this. You told me Rowan was getting the money. You let her starve while Alyssa played fashionista across the country. What kind of mother does that? Mom's eyes welled. I was just trying to help Alyssa succeed. And you decided Rowan didn't deserve the same chance? There was a long, stunned silence. I collapsed, I said finally. At work. From exhaustion. From not eating. Dad turned to me, horrified. You what? I was hospitalized. His hands curled into fists on the table. That's it. From now on, I'm handling the finances, direct transfers. No more of this. Mom shook her head. You can't just... I can, he said firmly. And I will. You've lost that right. She stood abruptly, grabbed her napkin, and left the table, dabbing her eyes like the victim. I sat still, heart pounding, unsure whether to cry or scream. But one thing was certain. Everything had changed. Dad reached across the table and gently touched my hand. I'm so sorry, he said. I didn't know, but I do now. For the first time in years, I believed him. The next morning, I found Dad at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a legal pad already filled with names, figures, and bullet points. A cold cup of coffee sat beside him, untouched. He looked up the moment I stepped in. I already emailed the family attorney, he said without greeting. We're freezing the trust account. I nodded silently. I also canceled the automatic transfers to your mother. From now on, you'll receive your monthly allowance direct from me. He paused, then added, I transferred 5-0 to your account this morning. It won't fix everything, but it's a start. My throat tightened. I hadn't seen him this focused since I was a child watching him prepare surgical presentations. This wasn't just guilt. It was resolve. What about Alyssa? I asked carefully. Dad sat back and exhaled. She'll still receive support, but the same amount as you, 1-0 a month. If she wants more, she'll need to find a job. A strange mix of emotions swept through me. Relief, justice, and, surprisingly, guilt. Not for Alyssa but for how long I had accepted this imbalance without questioning it. "She's not going to like it," I said quietly. "She doesn't have to," he replied. "This isn't about comfort anymore. It's about fairness and boundaries." We sat in silence for a while, the early morning light casting long shadows across the table. Then he cleared his throat. "There's something else I need to tell you." I braced myself. "Your mother has already diverted approximately 300 from the trust into a separate account under Alyssa's name. She told the lawyer it was an advance investment." My stomach turned. That was more than I'd ever imagined. That was a future house down payment. That was tuition for a whole residency program. "What happens now?" I asked. "She won't be able to access it," he said. "We're initiating legal steps to reverse the transfers. It'll take time, but I'll see it through." For the first time since I'd stepped into that house, I felt like someone was fighting for me. Later that day, I received the payment notification from my bank. As I looked at the screen, 50, freshly deposited, I didn't feel greedy or spoiled. I felt human, seen, equal. And for once, I didn't have to choose between buying groceries or printing lecture notes. That night, I slept for 10 hours straight, uninterrupted by hunger, anxiety, or cold. It was the first real rest I'd had in years. Alyssa called 3 days later. I was in my apartment in Boston, finally restocking my fridge with real food, eggs, vegetables, even fresh bread when my phone lit up with her name. I hesitated, then answered. "Did you say something to Dad?" Her voice was sharp. "No, hello." I kept my tone calm. "Yes, I told him the truth." A pause. "He cut me off, Rowan. I'm only getting 1,000 a month now. 1,000. That barely covers my rent here." I didn't respond right away. I could hear her pacing, probably in some sunlit loft in Los Angeles. "You've been getting 5,000 a month," I said, while I worked 3 jobs and fainted at work from hunger. Another pause. Longer this time. "Is that really what happened?" "Yes." Silence. "I didn't know it was that bad," she said at last, her voice quieter. "Would it have mattered if you did?" She didn't answer. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just wanted her to understand that this wasn't a sibling rivalry. It was survival. "I'm studying fashion design, Rowan," she said defensively. "It's a demanding field. We're judged on how we present ourselves. I can't just work at a coffee shop." "I'm in medical school, Alyssa," I said flatly. "I study human anatomy until 2 a.m. I wipe tables and serve drunk customers to make rent, and somehow I manage." She didn't hang up. That surprised me. "Eventually," she said. "So what happens now?" "You live within your means," I replied. "Like the rest of us." She sighed heavily, but there was something softer in it this time. Less entitled, more resigned. "I guess I'll start looking for part-time work." "That's not the worst thing in the world." "I don't even know where to begin," she admitted. "I didn't either," I said. "But you figure it out. You learn. You adapt." And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like we were competing. I felt like we were leveling. Over the next few weeks, we began talking more. Just short messages, then longer calls. She told me about a boutique that offered her a weekend position. She said the manager was strict but kind, and that she'd started sketching again for herself, not for class. Meanwhile, I finally dropped my catering job. I kept the tutoring gig because I enjoyed it, but I no longer needed to hustle every second. I started showing up to class rested. I raised my hand more. I joined a pre-med student association. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. And the distance between me and Alyssa didn't feel so wide anymore. Just when I thought things had begun to settle, the other shoe dropped. Dad called me on a Thursday evening. His voice was clipped, brittle like he was trying not to explode. "I found another transfer," he said. "Your mother's still sending money to Alyssa, behind my back." I didn't say anything at first. I just closed my laptop slowly and stared out the window of my tiny apartment, the Boston skyline hazy in the distance. "How much?" I asked. 3,000. Last week. She labeled it as art supplies on the joint account. That was the breaking point. The next day, Dad filed for divorce. The process was messy, public, and painful. For years, he'd let Mom control everything: budgets, tuition, allowances, long-term planning. It had seemed easier that way. But now, that trust was gone, shattered. She hadn't just lied, she'd betrayed both of us and used Alyssa as a justification. Mom fought it, of course. She tried to claim half of his assets, including the retirement fund. But when Dad's lawyer presented evidence-detailed bank records, trust fund diversions, false bookkeeping, sympathy the court might have had evaporated. The final settlement was overwhelmingly in Dad's favor. Mom was granted a modest monthly stipend, enough to live, but far less than she'd expected. She had to move out of the family house and into a small condo 2 towns over. She also had to get a job. For the first time in over 20 years, my mother went back into the workforce. She found part-time work at a department store folding clothes, helping customers, answering to someone else. Alyssa, to her credit, adjusted better than expected. She'd already started working at the boutique and, surprisingly, seemed to enjoy it. During one of our calls, she said, "My boss is teaching me more about fashion business than school ever did. And weirdly, I kind of like earning my own money." I didn't expect that from her. We were slowly figuring each other out. Without Mom's favoritism fueling our dynamic, we could finally see each other clearly. One night, Alyssa showed me one of her new designs, a minimalist wrap dress, made of low-cost material but structured with incredible detail. "I never would have made this version of me," she said. "Not if I still had everything handed to me." Meanwhile, Dad and I grew closer. He visited Boston often, met my professors, even came to a seminar I presented on cardiac abnormalities. He told me, "I always knew you'd be a great doctor, but I'm even more proud of the woman you're becoming." As for Mom, our relationship remained tense. She blamed Dad, blamed me, claimed we'd turned Alyssa against her. She called now and then, mostly short, stilted conversations. She tried to guilt-trip Alyssa back home, offering to take care of her again, but Alyssa gently declined each time. "I'm not going backwards," she told me. "I love her, but I can't go back to being the fragile doll she needed me to be." There was something beautiful about that. We were both stepping into the women we were meant to become in reaction to our mother, but despite her. And the distance between us? It wasn't cold anymore. It was honest. 2 years later, everything looked different, yet somehow more real than it ever had. I was in my 4th year of medical school, ranking near the top of my class. Residency interviews were around the corner, and for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't surviving, I was building. My apartment was small but warm, my fridge was full. My days were long, but purposeful. Dad called every Sunday without fail. He'd fly in for my big moments, my first surgical rotation, my presentation at the university symposium. We'd sit in cafes and talk like peers, like 2 people who had found each other after too long of being separated by silence and roles. "You've grown into someone I deeply admire," he told me one evening, over black coffee. "And not just because of your grades but because of your clarity." Alyssa was still in Los Angeles, but she wasn't the same girl from the rooftop selfies. Her small fashion line designed for women who couldn't afford couture but wanted to feel powerful had taken off. Her designs were thoughtful, practical, and surprisingly personal. During one of our video calls, she said, "Constraints taught me how to create from truth, not from image." She looked healthier too, calmer, rooted. Mom, on the other hand, was still adjusting. She'd been promoted to assistant manager at the department store, her first taste of real responsibility in decades. During one emotional call, she said, "I'm proud of you, Rowan. I was wrong about a lot." It wasn't a full apology, but it was a crack in the wall. She had started therapy. For the first time, she was speaking about her own childhood, how she had always felt invisible next to her own sister. It didn't excuse what she did to me, but it helped me understand why she had seen herself in Alyssa and erased me in the process. This year, we were spending Christmas together for the first time since everything changed. Dad had invited both of us to his house. Alyssa was flying in from LA. I would be there after my last clinical rotation. Even Mom said she would stop by briefly. I didn't know how it would feel, but I was willing to find out. Because family, I had learned, is not about pretending. It's not about perfectly folded napkins or scripted smiles. It's about facing the hard truths, about boundaries, about rebuilding when things fall apart. And, most of all, about choosing each other again on honest terms. No more favoritism, no more secrets. Just love that didn't require me to earn it. That winter, as snow blanketed the trees outside the window, I sat beside my sister and my father, warm soup in hand, and I realized this wasn't the family I'd grown up in. It was the one we had made, brick by painful brick. And this time, I belonged.